everybody is doing well out there on a Friday afternoon. It is 2 o'clock on Friday, the 17th of April. Man, it's getting really hard to tell what day it is, right? So, glad that you guys are watching this, whether live or watching this later. But hope that things find you well. We are right now doing a series that we've been doing on the resurrection accounts in the Bible, which is kind of a theme of going into this Easter and of the after Easter time, because I think really quickly, most time in church, we kind of skip over after Easter and just sort of jump right into whatever else we were talking about before Easter happened. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to take a little bit of a tour through the passages that are in the Gospels after Easter and sort of take a look at them and see if there's anything that we can learn from them. So if you have not looked at last week's, actually it wasn't last week's, it was Monday's Instagram live that we did on Mark. You can find that on our YouTube page. You can just go to Salado United Methodist Church and there is a youth playlist. You can look up that devotional there if you want to see it and listen to it. We've been keeping these pretty short, about 10 minutes or so, just to kind of do a little summary. So to get back to Matthew, we're going to look at Matthew today. Matthew, of course, is your first gospel in your Bible. It was not the first one written, though. That belongs to Mark, which is why we studied Mark last week. And Matthew is an interesting gospel. It was written to a Jewish audience. Most scholars, Bible nerds, as we know them, think. It was written to Jewish people. So it makes for some interesting differences between Matthew and some of the other Gospels. And so we're going to look at a few of those. So we're going to be in Matthew 28 is the chapter that we're in. And we notice after the Sabbath, verse 1, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the tomb. And there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven. Coming to the stone, he rolled it away and sat on it. His face was like lightning, and his clothes as white as snow. The guards were so terrified of him that they shook with fear and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Don't be afraid. I know you were looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He isn't here, because he's been raised from the dead, just as he said. Come, see the place where they laid him. Now hurry, go and tell his disciples. He's raised from the dead. He's going on ahead of you to Galilee. You will see them there. I've given the message to you." With great fear and excitement, they hurried away from the tomb and ran to tell his disciples. But Jesus met them and greeted them. They came and grabbed his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid. Go and tell my brothers I'm going to Galilee. They will see me there." Now as the women were on their way, some of the guards came into the city and told the chief priests everything that had happened. And they met the elders and decided to give a large sum of money to the soldiers. And they told them, "Say that Jesus' disciples came at night and stole the body away while you were sleeping. And if the governor hears about that, we'll take care of him so you have nothing to worry about." So the soldiers took the money and did as they were told. And this report has spread throughout all Judea to this day. So this is, I don't know why my voice cracked. But this is an interesting story, to say the least. And there's some changes in Matthew, I guess, that you don't see in Mark. And don't let that scare you about the Bible. If a jury was listening to testimony from witnesses and they all sounded the same, the jury would get really suspicious and wonder what the heck's going on. Why is all these witnesses looking at this the exact same way? So the fact that they're not in the different Gospels is kind of showing you that these are different story traditions that were passed down before they were written down, and that shouldn't scare you. It just means that different authors are looking at different parts of the story and having a different emphasis. So in this one of the interesting pieces is this angel that comes down. In Mark, we looked at last week, it just says a young man. This one says an angel. And Matthew's really big on the angel thing. If you remember, if you go way back to Matthew 1, the very first story about Jesus after we learn his lineage is from an angel coming to Joseph and telling him to keep Mary around. And so angels are always in Jesus' story, and here they are again. And an angel comes down, everybody's scared of him. If you've seen pictures of what angels look like in the Bible, they will scare you. And they're always filled with fear upon people and stuff like that, because I'm sure that would be wild to go to a tomb and instead see an angel. So the angel's there, tells the women don't be afraid, and that's pretty similar to the message that we see in the other Gospels. So they try to go away from the tomb. They're running, which you would do if you were scared, and ran to tell the disciples. But Jesus met them and greeted them. And this is a little different than the account and some of the other stories about the gardener that Mary sees and other things. But here, Jesus just greets them, and their response was to grab his feet and worship him. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, it tells us that Jesus had a real body. He wasn't just a spirit or an apparition. They actually grabbed onto his feet and were worshiping at his feet. So that's an important piece of it. It's also important to show Matthew's theme of Jesus as king. Jesus is the king, and therefore he's worthy of our worship. So that's why that is there. And then Matthew adds this little detail about the guards story, and that the guards were scared, and so they went to talk to the chief priests. Now, if these are guards, they probably were Romans, so why didn't they go to Pilate? Well, they probably didn't because they didn't want to get killed. Because you mess up on the job in the Roman army, you get some bad consequences happening. So they probably didn't want that to happen. So instead they went to the chief priest. The chief priest said, here's a story we're going to give you, and we'll take care of it with Pilate. We'll, give him some money. We'll feed him a false story. Whatever we need to do to make sure that Pilate doesn't get mad at you, we're going to take care of it. And that's, he notes, is a story that was told throughout Judea, even when this book was written. So the funny part about this story that I noticed is, he says, tell people that the disciples came while you were asleep. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm asleep, I don't see anything. So I'm not sure what people thought about this story. If you said, well, it must have been the disciples because I was asleep. Well, did you see them? No, I was asleep. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird story, kind of an irony to the story there, and shows some of the truth of this. But what does this mean for us? I mean, that's what we always study the Bible to know what it means for our own lives. And I think the important thing about this is it shows Matthew's emphasis on Jesus as king, and that Jesus, by rising from the dead, proved that. He proved that he was king, that he conquered death, and that he's brought us life. And our proper response should be to fall at his feet and worship him. And I think that we don't often get the magnitude of what this means. We don't often get the depth of what it means. We just go, yeah, Jesus is risen. He's risen indeed. Awesome. And we say it as part of church, and it doesn't really penetrate our world of music and video games and friends and fun and dealing with school, and now not dealing with school because it's closed. But it's like our world gets so busy that we don't often think about the depth of what it means. That Jesus should be king of our lives and is worthy of our worship, and that's not just something that we do on Sundays. It should be a proper position of our lives, is to be at Jesus' feet and worship. That's a huge, huge part of what it means to be a Christian, to be a person of faith, is to understand the depth of what that means. And I hope that maybe this account will help you see that some, that you will see during this post-Easter time, that you will think about what it means that Jesus is king of my life. What does that mean for my day-to-day relationships with my family, with my friends, with people that I come in contact with virtually now, usually by phone or whatever, social media, on video game chat, whatever it is that we're contacting people, we're still contacting others. And how do we represent what it means that Jesus is king of our life? And hopefully when we are represented to others, they will see that through us. So that's your thought for the day. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching this at any time. Remember, if you miss it this week, it will be up on our YouTube page. Also, we hope that you will join us in about 15 minutes at 2:30 on Zoom for our Friday game time. So we will have a good time and laugh and make fun of each other and lead up into the weekend. Again, thanks for being here. Let me know if you have any prayer requests, anything that you need. I'm trying to reach out to everybody by text. So if I haven't reached out to you yet, I will soon, and hope to hear from you. So love you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.